Okay, this one is from Thomas Segui. Hi, Gigi. Love your wise comments on myriad of topics. 2 questions. Are the soul recycling machines located on our artificial moon? Are the soul recycling machines located on our artificial moon neutralized by the Space Brothers or White Hats? Also, are the wolf people guardians of the interdimensional portals so as to prevent access to our plane of service to self-negative entities? Okay, so I'm going to reframe this a little bit, and we're going to get into the thrust of what you're saying, but I'm going to reframe it, and I'm going to use some different language here because I can't enter into this topic as it's questioned here. So I've spoken extensively on the moon and what a moon is on this channel. I think you just have to write into the search bar. I actually don't know if there's search bars anymore, but I know that you can just go through my timestamps and you can see my take on the moon. I've spoken about it in a few Q&As. I've spoken extensively about the moon on my private website. I've probably covered the artificial moon question like 6 or 7 times. And every single time I try to answer it a little bit differently. So there's probably a couple hours of me just talking about that on my website alone. So you can also find this information there. Essentially, in the New Age and ufology, what tends to happen is there's like a kernel of truth. And then that kernel of truth becomes exaggerated on and exaggerated on and exaggerated on, and more deformed, until eventually there's this strange system, this strange cosmology that really is a bizarre kind of caricature of the original concept or the original cosmology. And that's actually where we are with the New Age and with ufology on a lot of different topics. So the moon is not a purely artificial body. The moon, any moon around a planet, has a spiritual purpose. And usually when people start calling things and going really heavy into galactic wars, or, going too far into artificiality, going too far into thinking like every cosmic process is unnatural and was done by an alien. Like when the conversation starts to become like that for me is something that I cannot engage in, because it's becoming too far from reality. So it is true that every cosmic body has a regent or has a spiritual entity that rules it, that enters into it and rules it. That is very true. And also, the moon of every planet basically contains the karma of the planet. Okay, so there's a spiritual reason why a planet will develop a moon. And if we really want to understand how a moon forms and how it is developed, we first have to understand that a physical planet is not always physical. So a planet begins, like a planet that we see in the physical plane, begins in the astral plane or in a non-material plane and gains density. Then it enters into an etheric state, and it becomes more and more physical over time until it basically enters into the physical plane. And during that time, there's a lot of stuff going on with the planet. And right before the planet entered the physical plane as we know it, it sort of split in two and created its a perfect little ball, which is the moon. And the moon then sort of created a lock around the planet so that humanity was essentially locked in materiality unless they can overcome the aspects of themselves that are essentially trapped in the moon or in the moon realm. And this is why the moon is often portrayed as a mirror, And this is also why there's been a lot of different beings and people that have tried to tamper with the moon, to try to hollow out the moon potentially, and to basically make it so that people think the moon is fake. Well, I mean, it's one thing to say, listen, the moon has some characteristics and qualities that seem unusual according to people who have done research. It seems like it's a metal object. It seems like it rang like a bell. There's things about the moon that seem synthetic. Okay, that could be an honest assessment. Should we believe the people that are saying that? Okay, you know, I haven't walked around on the moon, you know, so hey. But just because there are synthetic elements to the moon, or the moon's been tampered with, does that therefore mean that the moon is synthetic? Or was the moon a natural body with real spiritual power connected to the earth that people have tampered with? You see, the moon wouldn't have any power over humanity and over the earth unless it was part of the earth and a spiritual aspect of the earth. Okay, so typically in the New Age and in ufology, it is becoming like everything is from a galactic war. You know, everything has been synthetic. Everything is created. Everything, the earth is like a prison. And it's starting to, you know, when we go too far in that direction, we start to lose the big picture. And we're starting to only see the dark age of the cosmos and the dark age of the planet. And we're not seeing how moons form and how moons are eventually dissolved. We're not seeing the Earth's relationship with its satellites and why. We're not seeing the deeper spiritual reasons for that. And we're not really plumbing the depths of our own existence. We're just living in this shallow little reality, hyper-focusing on sort of this one angle that has some truth, but it's not the truth. And a lot of it is, quite honestly, very distorted. And a lot of it is just really missing so much of the puzzle. It's basically false, right? Like if you enter into the idea thinking the moon is fake, it's like it's such a different ideology. The moon is fake and was put here by reptilian beings that want to oppress you, okay? Or the moon is a natural body that was basically separated from the earth as the earth reached its peak density. It contains the earth's karma. It radiates its karma back to the earth. And the spiritual effect is this lock or this moon realm around it. There are beings and entities that are trapped in this realm because they're fallen and they're dark, and they try to alter the moon and have been trying to alter the moon for a very long time in order to get out of the moon realm without having to look at themselves, without having to it's a way of trying to get out of the eighth sphere, right? If you don't want that, it's when beings become too fallen, like I was saying before, they try to do everything externally. You can't get out of the planet, you can't get out of the lower planes through altering the moon or through altering Mars. You can't escape the earth and the earth's karmic process by going to Mars. You know, this is delusion, okay? And this is the delusion of the fallen angel mindset where everything can be done externally, physically. And it creates a weird cosmology. So just to summarize there, just because there may be artificial aspects to our moon or any moon or anything, it does not mean the whole thing is artificial, right? There are beings who try to tamper with these things because they want to force open stargates, because they're trying to control consciousness, but it's not completely artificial. If it was completely artificial, it would have no power over consciousness, right? The moon is part of us. It's part of you. It's part of me. It's part of the planet. And one day, in thousands and thousands and thousands of years, the moon will be reabsorbed into the earth. When the earth reaches a more etheric astral place, it will actually reabsorb the moon into it. And that will represent humanity coming back around and healing all of their karma that existed in the moon. And there'll be a whole alchemical process that happens between the earth and the moon at that point. And the earth will also eventually merge with the sun as well. And all of the fallen angel beings and stuff obviously fear this, but eventually the earth will even reach a higher position and it will merge again with the earth. And that is, but at that point, the humanity will be a solar being, or the Atman, it'll be a higher form at that point. So it's okay to merge with these bodies because we will be less dense, if that makes sense. So there's a whole incredible spiritual cosmology to the evolution of our planet. Like, what is a moon? What is a planet? What is the sun? You know, what is the journey of humanity as they incarnate on a planet? What is humanity's relationship with the moon? Like, we are losing all of this information that is the most important information that we can have for like infotainment or spiritual entertainment stuff that is like junk food. I'm sorry, it's just crap. Like, it has no initiating value at all. You literally you're not more empowered by listening to this kind of content. We're not entering into the topic from the right way. Okay, the next part of this question is talking about soul recycling machines being neutralized by space brothers or white hats. Basically, the idea of space brothers or like galactic federations or these alien beings, this all goes back to around 1940s, 1950s. This is when we started to view the spiritual hierarchies and the ascended masters and the kind of holy adepts in the solar system as aliens. So there's this point in spirituality and the New Age where what we used to call like the Mahatmas, or, you know, like we're talking about in the Venus series, these very advanced human beings that are great initiates. Today we would call them like members of the spiritual hierarchy, the angelic hierarchy, or like ascended masters. We used to communicate that way and understand these topics very humanly. And we used to use that structure for thousands and thousands of years. And then suddenly around like the 50s, the 40s, suddenly the ascended masters became Ashtar, or the Ashtar command, or these alien Nordics from Venus, or these, Pleiadians from Venus, or whatever it is. And you started to see the spiritual hierarchies become alien. And I was actually talking with Dark Journalist about this. It's actually really funny because I got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, the New Age and modern spirituality is basically Scientology. And I say this with a special kind of like drop in my stomach because, you know, I used to believe all of this myself. Many of you know this. You've been following me for a long time. And so I've realized, after being in that part of the community and then also studying and being in the traditional esoteric side or the mystery school side, the classical side of esoterica, that basically the New Age is basically Scientology. I mean, you have L. Ron Hubbard basically creating basically taking science fiction and this idea of all of these galactic wars. And he talks about the soul recycling machines. Actually, he says that's on Mars. You know, L. Ron Hubbard says that in his work, he says that the soul recycling machines on Mars is when you get an implant, like a spiritual implant on Mars, and then you come to the Earth. And so it's L. Ron Hubbard that took these mystery teachings about the soul basically going through all these different sojourns on different planetary spheres and then reincarnating on Earth. L. Ron Hubbard took that and made that like a space soap opera, a space opera.
And there was the fourth invader force was here. The fifth invader force came in to use this area, and the name of this solar system is Space Station 33. And they started to use this area without suspecting that the fourth invader force had been there for God knows how many skillion years, had been sitting down, and they have their installations up on Mars, and they have a tremendous screened operation. The Martian operation is a fascinating operation simply because it has gone into 100% holding force. And it does everything it does with tremendous coversion. It's sitting behind a defense screen of enormous size. And it's frankly impossible to penetrate that except as a Thetan. And if you penetrate as a Thetan, you go through the Martian screen, and they gotcha.
And there's also a couple of papers that I read where people paralleled L. Ron Hubbard and Zachary Isitchin's work. They basically also say the same thing. They include Mars, they include all these different things. And so there's this jump off point right around the time of Scientology, right around that 1940s, 50s era, where suddenly the masters and spiritual angelic humans that are not alien at all, are totally connected to the Earth, suddenly they're being portrayed as these space brothers, as these beings from other planets. And, you know, there's these intense galactic wars going on, and the battle in heaven, which was really known to be taking place in like the astral plane. It was never conflated with, you know, now suddenly it's sort of like, this is our ancient past, and there's no delineation of like, well, perhaps there is a past like that, but it's in a different dimension. Like it's in a different plane. It's not in this plane fully. And so there's this intense conflation and confusion of different spiritual planes, and of what a high initiate is, what a spiritual master is. And suddenly the spiritual hierarchies become aliens. And now today, we are fully in this Scientology belief system that has fully bloomed in the public, which is the alien god religion. And, you know, the aliens are really the angels. You know, these alien beings are our creators. They're the spiritual masters. They're going to initiate us into a higher society. They're billions of years ahead of us. And so the whole system that was once an interdimensional system of communicating with basically spiritual masters and angelic consciousnesses that are human and directly connected with our Earth, suddenly that's turned into aliens and galactic wars, and it's become basically Scientology, which is really interesting because when you look at L. Ron Hubbard was not only, you know, creating this bizarre alien god religion. Before that, he was actually very close friends with Jack Parsons. And Jack Parsons is basically the forefather of NASA. And he was also a raging black magician. You know, they were both very close disciples with Aleister Crowley. And even Werner von Braun, the Nazi scientist Werner von Braun, strangely was like childhood pen pals with Jack Parsons. How does a German boy become pen pals with Jack Parsons as a teenage boy? How does that happen? How does the leader of the Nazi rocket program suddenly become best pen pals with Jack Parsons, who becomes the forefather of the NASA rocket program, of JPL. What are the odds? Do you think that maybe they had some kind of binding secret society behind them? And that they were maybe chosen to bring forward this new culture, this new way of life? So Jack Parsons was a raging black magician. He was a Crowleyite. He would read the hymns of Pan before launching rockets. He was an intense occultist. I think the occult was even perhaps more of his love than even rocketry. I don't know, but he was deeper in it than most people will ever be in several lives. He was so deep into it, his neighbors would complain about it in California. And one of his best friends, and also Crowley disciple, was L. Ron Hubbard. And so L. Ron Hubbard was also connected with the founding of NASA and rocketry, and Crowley and Aleister Crowley. You can't, I mean, you can't get around that. That's just the reality of the thing. And so you have one disciple of Crowley and this secret society that is behind rocketry and is involved in the dark occult and this impulse. You have one pillar of it, which is Jack Parsons, and he goes off and he creates NASA's JPL, which has now been inherited by who? Mr. Mars himself, Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the rocket man, and of course, we know also that Werner von Braun named Elon, and Werner von Braun also was communicating with Jack Parsons, so he was in communication with both of those figures, or he knew about both. He knew about Elon, named him, and then was in communication with Jack Parsons as a boy. That's not normal. That's not the hand of fate. That is planned. Okay, we have to understand this is planned, and it's planned to introduce a certain impulse to society. And so on one hand, you have Jack Parsons, and he's developing these rockets, and he's created NASA. And again, NASA is a very occult organization. Take the blinders off. It is an occult organization. Okay, space and planets are one of the most spiritual occult things ever. It's the basis of every part of ceremonial magic, is where the planets are and what the planets are. Cannot do ceremonial magic without the stars and planets. Okay. The other pillar that we have is Hubbard. And nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about him. And if you do try to say things like they come after you like nobody's, but like the mafia, they come after you like the darn mafia. If you try to say anything about them, what kind of honest organization acts like that? So Hubbard ends up creating the space religion. He ends up creating the alien God paradigm. In OT8, or Operating Theta 8, L. Ron Hubbard basically talks about the Galactic Confederacy, or this Galactic Federation. He starts giving this elaborate cosmic history. It's the same kind of space soap operas that we are hearing in the New Age today. Sometimes the words change or whatever, but it is the same material. Because he based that off of the idea of the lords of Mars, the lords of Venus, the reality that the human soul incarnates on these different spheres, the overlapping of the spheres. He just made a mockery of this occult information, probably because he was communicating with fallen angel forces, and they were probably giving him this information because it was the information that would confuse humanity and draw them out of their own self-development by giving them this weird alien alternate history. I mean, he's probably communicating with, these darker forces that want humanity to believe that. He probably maybe believed it himself. I don't know. But all I know is that you have one side of this whole cosmic impulse of the Aquarian age that is hyper-technological. You have that in Jack Parsons and now Elon Musk. Then, and with Wernher von Braun as well. And of course, even though Elon is interested in rocketry, does he have to take on the same dream as Wernher von Braun? Does he have to take on almost the same personality, the same dream to go to Mars? Can we just develop rocketry without having the exact same dream as Wernher von Braun? Right? Why do they have the same desire to preserve the light of consciousness? That was Wernher von Braun's belief system, was that the sun was going to be destroyed one day and we had to preserve the light of consciousness and go to Mars. Why does Elon Musk have that exact same belief system?
You don't think that we're going to have to escape to Mars one day?
No, I'd rather look at it the other way. I think somehow space flight for the first time gives mankind a chance to become immortal. In other words, once this Earth will no longer be able to support life, we can immigrate and go to other places that are better suited for the support of life.
Because if you know anything about the actual evolution of the Earth and humanity, you don't have to preserve consciousness by going to another planet. It's already preserved. It's already within you. You go through the cycles of life and birth on a planet and you evolve with it. Cataclysms come and go. We evolve. The light does not need to be preserved. This is delusion. So you have that whole technological wing that was essentially founded, and how something is founded is very important. It is founded in magic. It's founded from the secret society behind Aleister Crowley. And that becomes NASA. And that impulse goes into Wernher von Braun. And that impulse goes into Rocket Man himself, Elon Musk. We don't have time to mince words about these kinds of things. On the other side, you have the creation of a new religion through L. Ron Hubbard. We can laugh at this and say, I don't believe in Scientology. I think Scientology's crap. Then why has the New Age basically become Scientology? It is the alien god religion. Now they don't call it Xenu, but a lot of people in the New Age certainly believe in the Galactic Confederation, which really started with Hubbard and also George Van Tassel and some others. But it really became a concerted belief in Scientology back then. And you also have Tom Cruise wanting to film in the space station and do these, space movies and stuff now, and he's a top Scientologist. So what I'm trying to say is that there is an unnatural impulse. And as we move into the Aquarian age, as I've said many different times, the Aquarian age is a cosmic age. It's about understanding ourselves in an expanded cosmic way. Life on other spheres, the evolution of a planet. Suddenly things become cosmic, right? This impulse is trying to achieve that, but in a completely weird, materialist, distorted way. And we have to be able to look at it, and we have to be able to call it out. This idea of the ascended masters being aliens, these white hats, these galactic wars, this is pretty much the same thing as Scientology. You just have the names change and the dynamics shift a little bit, but it's the same structure. And of course, the structure has to change so that that belief system is relatable and meaningful to people. It's the same ideology that is basically in Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens is just preparing humanity to worship aliens. Because according to Ancient Aliens, every single temple structure was built by an alien, not humanity. It's not acknowledging humanity's complete, gorgeous history and temple building in Atlantis. We built all those things, not aliens. Why are all these popular programs, Chariots of the Gods, Ancient Aliens, Gaia, why are all these programs drawing you outside of yourselves and giving aliens credit for something that you did? Why is that ideology there? Why are we being told that aliens created everything, including you? Well, almost 100 years ago now, 80 years ago, 70 years ago, L. Ron Hubbard in Scientology had that idea too. And they wrote their whole origin story out. And why is it called Scientology? Because this is supposed to be the era of spiritual science. It's supposed to be the era of spiritual science where we finally begin to understand spirituality as a science. And because they were associated with secret societies, they knew that. And this is their way of creating spiritual science. They called it Scientology. Even the introduction of technologies like the cans, when you go through your initiation into that religion, they're trying to introduce technology to spiritual processes. Even then, the idea that a physical instrument, some kind of technology, can tell the truth to you, can reveal the truth to you, that you need to merge with technology and use technology in a spiritual process. It's there as well in Scientology. So this impulse is in Scientology. It was absolutely in L. Ron Hubbard. But at the end of the day, it's also beyond him. He was just picking up this fallen angel stream. And he was essentially just doing their bidding, right? Other people can tap into this stream as well and communicate with these entities and these beings and create their own version of that. But there will always be certain tenets. There will always be certain things that are covered. And it will always lead you astray from the reality of our cosmos and the reality of spiritual initiation in the cosmos. So this idea of these space brothers, the Galactic Federation, a lot of that began in Scientology. And it is a specific stream, and I disagree with it. I disagree with it wholeheartedly. And so I'm not sure about wolf people guardians or anything like that, but we have to prepare ourselves to confront that stream. As we move into the Aquarian age, it is a cosmic age, and there's going to be a lot of lies. But these lies are sort of based on these, again, they're based on these little kernels of truth. And the lie, it's always entertaining and flashy, and it will draw you out of yourself, right? Then the truth always seems a little bit out of your grasp. It always seems a little bit beyond you, because it's really always being revealed from within. And so this whole push for disclosure is really going to lead us to something that is very different than we think. The forces that are behind disclosure right now, or the idea of disclosure, that have the power and control and influence to do disclosure, It's really about introducing a whole new technological age, a whole new kind of technology, a whole new era. And with that era is going to come this weird religion. And it's really rooted in it was really rooted in that era of Jack Parsons creating NASA, which is essentially behind all the new technologies that will come forward. It's the same vein. These technologies will liberate humanity, but that's another video. And then, with these new technologies will be this new religion, this new kind of spirituality by, discovering our origins or whatever that may be. Hopefully we can talk about it enough and bring enough light to it that it just doesn't happen. But I don't know if that'll work, but you know what I'm saying, reveal it. And those are the two things that we have to face head on and prepare ourselves. Because the dogmatic religions do have power, they do have truth, but as I tweeted the other day, the dogmatic religions can't handle this. They can't handle what's coming. They can't handle the kind of occult and esoteric stuff that's going to come in with all of this technology, and it's going to be this new scientific, techno, alien, spiritual religion thing. And dogmatic religions won't fully be able to confront it and cast it out or create a new path. The only thing that can confront what I'm talking about here today is understanding spiritual science, understanding occult science, mystery science. Actually understanding that is the only thing that can confront what is coming. So we have to know that, and we have to prepare for that, because everything, this controlled demolition, this collapse of society, all of this is happening to bring in a new way of life. Okay, all of this, you don't have a powerful group of people do basically a controlled demolition of society unless they have something else they're going to introduce, something else waiting in the wings. What is waiting in the wings? What kind of society do they want to introduce exactly? What kind of religion are they going to try to introduce? So while we're sitting here and we're discussing everything that we've lost in the last couple of years due to the health crisis and all of that, we also need to discuss why it's been going on. And once things do continue to collapse to a certain degree, what are they wanting to replace it with exactly? In my opinion, they want to introduce a hyper-technological age with technologies that they've been sitting on for a very long time that could have liberated us from a lot of very negative things. But they wanted to do it when they could completely control it. They don't want competition, and they want to introduce this soon. And everybody will have to use it, and it will allow them to have a monopoly, a way bigger monopoly of this new way of life than ever before. So people will think they're being liberated, people will think they're being freer, but in reality, they will be becoming less free. And eventually a new spiritual system, a new belief system will come about. And it will not be true. It will be this everything I've basically covered in Mars Mysteries, and everything I've been covering in my videos for a while. That's what I see. Because the only thing that can distract us from Christ within and the inner process of genuine development, genuine growth, going back to nature, harmony, is this idea that we can just do it all through technology. that we don't need to go inward. We don't need to find Christ within and center. We can just continually project outwards and go deeper and deeper into this, what will become a very toxic relationship with technologies. So thank you so much for listening today. It's always my pleasure to connect. Thank you for these awesome questions. I had such a great time reading them, and I don't always get to answer every question or like every comment, but I do read them, and I do really appreciate all of your support. If you do enjoy my work, I am completely supported by you. Please go ahead and make a donation. If you like these lectures, it keeps me going. It keeps the lights on over here. You can also join my membership platform, where I do 2 live Q&As a month, where I go even deeper into topics like this. And there's about like 6 to 7 hours a month of extra content over there. I also go a lot deeper into certain topics that I just don't get into on YouTube as well. And I also focus on your question. What do you want to know? And there's also forums where you can connect with like-minded individuals. There's Meditation Monday. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on over there. I'd love to see you over there. Thank you so much for being with me, for liking, for sharing, for commenting, supporting. I really appreciate it. And as always, I will see you in our next chat. And all my love your way.